border war. Fans called it Moonshine Throwdown. I think that's the best rivalry name, an unofficial name, but the best rivalry name I've come across.
Yeah, unofficial that should become official soon enough.
Embrace it.
Throws deep downfield for the end zone, a lunging catch, and it's a score for the Herd, Jerron Woodyard. And it is 37-0, and Grant Wells is moving up toward a 300-yard passing performance in the first half. That is his 4th touchdown toss.
Story toward Jackson, got separation to the 20, to the 10, and he will go. Lucky Jackson from 54 yards out.
Pressure off the edge. Screen delivers. What a catch, Levias, who brings it in. Armani Levias to the house. Touchdown, Marshall.
This will be from 52 yards. From the far hash mark. John Haggerty, the punter, will hold. Jared Nash will snap it. It's definitely long enough. It is good! Unbelievable. The true freshman, Corey Munson, hammers it home from 52 yards.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. I got Moff with me. We are going to preview the UT Chattanooga trip to Western Kentucky to face the Tops in BGKY. Game's going down, according to ESPN, 10:24, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. Look, Steve, as much as Western Kentucky has struggled this season, believe it or not, this one is a weird game in its own right. I went looking for all the standard information that I like to talk about and inform the listeners with. And first thing I went to was the schedule because I wanted to see how Chattanooga had been doing this year. And this is the only game on the schedule for UTC right now. Every game before this has been postponed or canceled, and every game after this, according to ESPN and the UTC website, has been postponed or canceled. This is literally the only game on the schedule right now. So despite all the stuff that we've seen from Western Kentucky, UTC hasn't played at all. We don't know who's actually going to be the usual suspects for them as far as players to look out for. I try to do a little due diligence and figure out some guys based on 2019 stats. But look, the Toppers are a 90.3% chance to win in the Power Index this week. Minus 14.5 are the Tops. Big time favorite, over under at 53.5. So look, Vegas thinks there's going to be a lot of points getting scored in this game, apparently. UTC, I guess all we can talk about is 2016 or 2019. They were 6-6 last year, so they didn't break the doors down by any means last year. And like I said, this is the only game on the schedule. This is the first game and could potentially be the only game of the season for UTC. There is no chance they should come out and be clicking and firing on all cylinders simply because they have not played at game speed against an opponent. You can only go so hard in practice without getting popped in the mouth for real in a real-time game. So look, UTC's coming to town. We talked about this before. This is the game that Western needs to get a little bit of a reprieve from that tough gauntlet of a schedule they face at the beginning of the year so far. And man, this one could get ugly. So what about UTC and the Toppers?
I mean, it's safe to say that we are their Super Bowl this year. We are their first, last, and only at this point. So, I mean, I don't know what to expect from them. Obviously, I expect rust, but I also expect their adrenaline to just be up on 10 and just going, flying sideline to sideline because they're going to be giving it all for, one 60-minute game, and that's it at this point. But, I do expect the Toppers need to flex their muscle. I mean, they just need to just show that there's a big talent disparity on the field and that, we're faster, stronger. Obviously, we've been playing, so we're going to have a little bit more continuity. So hopefully ESPN and Vegas and the power indexes, hopefully all that stuff is correct in predicting what's going to happen in the result of this game.
Yeah, I mean, I just simply cannot fathom a scenario that UTC comes out and is just this big juggernaut and can do no wrong. I mean, It just doesn't happen. I can't see that. But you're right. One game on the schedule, they get to go all out for 60 minutes. So, they're going to be taking some risks, I would imagine. And, they've got basically this is the season unless they get added, maybe another Conference USA team will lose a game and need to pick up one real quick. And UTC is that type of team that could be like, yeah, we'll take the game. Sure. We'll take the revenue or whatever. But just a weird, I mean, it's late October and they've haven't played yet, and they may not play again. But look, let's talk about some players to, I guess, be aware of. There were no statistics to be available on ESPN whatsoever. I had to go back to 2019, and I went to the Mocs website and tried to figure out who might trot out there at quarterback. And then I just wrote down some, leading stat grabbers from 2019 that are still on the roster this year. So some guys that that could make an impact, but really, ultimately, I'm just unsure of who's going to come out and be the quarterback. But I'm featuring two. We'll start with a couple of upperclassmen. I figured if anybody's going to come out there, it'd probably be a senior or a junior. So we'll start with senior number 3 quarterback Drayton Arnold, 5'11", 205-pounder. He's an Old Dominion transfer, so got a little familiarity with Conference USA schools. That's 2 reasons why he might get the nod, being an upperclassman senior and having come from Old Dominion. But no stats of any consequence whatsoever at UTC at all, and barely any at Old Dominion. Number 18 quarterback Cole Copeland, the 6'4", 205-pound junior. Just a big body guy, upperclassman in case they go that direction. I really just don't have anything to give you on either one of these quarterbacks. But here comes a running back we're going to feature. This is a name that a lot of Western Kentucky fans will be familiar with, because if you'll recall, running back Gino Appleberry plays for the UTC Mocs now, 5'9", 205-pounder. Netted back in 2018, 196 yards for the Tops, found the end zone 3 times. So he transferred out, I guess, last year and redshirted. So this will be his first action with the Mocs if he gets to get some game action. I would like to think that he will, seeing as how he transferred from WKU and was productive to a certain extent at Western Kentucky. Number 23, running back Terrell Price, 6 foot, 210-pound senior. 730 career rushing yards for the Mocs, 9 touchdowns on the ground. Most of those came in 2018. I guess he was either injured or whatever else. In 2019, just didn't get a lot of statistics put up there. The big bulk of that yardage came in 2018. Number 19, wide receiver Bryce Nunnally. He's the leading receiver returning from last year. 6'2", 190-pound senior. He caught 57 balls last year for 794 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then after that, it's like a big drop-off. Number 12, wide receiver Reginald Henderson, the 6'3", 205-pound senior. 21 catches for 381 yards, no touchdowns at UTC. And he's a former Middle Tennessee player, transferred in a couple of years back. So there's a couple of guys with some familiarity in Conference USA circles. Got an ODU guy, got a couple of Western Kentucky guys, and a Middle Tennessee guy. And yes, I said a couple because we're going to feature tight end for the Mocs, number 87, former topper, Jay Gibson, the 6'5", 260-pound sophomore. 5 receptions for 54 yards. I mean, it's not a lot of guys with a lot of stats from last year, and nobody with any stats this year. So, based on what we know, got a couple of guys familiar with the Western Kentucky brand of football there from the East Division teams, and a couple guys from the Tops roster from a few years back. So what do you think this Tops defense is going to look like coming out on Saturday?
I mean, we've got to be aggressive. I mean, that is kind of our style anyways. I think we're a pretty aggressive defensive team. But knowing that you're coming into a team that you should be, just outclassing, at virtually every position, I mean, we should be stronger. I don't want to say faster, because if we have smaller guys, or if they have smaller guys, they could be faster than us. But I surely think that we can outmuscle them. We need to put a lot of pressure on their quarterback, whomever that is, and just do what you have to do. Disrupt their offense, stop them in the backfield, put them behind the chains, and just make their life, difficult. And virtually make them one-dimensional, where they've got to drop back and throw, and then let our talented secondary just go make plays.
Look, to me, this game has a very much of a feel like it's time for Clark Kent to take the glasses off and time for him to rip the shirt open and see the ass under the dress shirt. That's what I feel like this defense needs to do. It's time to flex those muscles. It's time to just obliterate an opponent. It's time to embarrass some guys to a certain degree and show that you are in fact head and shoulders above the team on the other side of the field, period. And we all know, we've been talking about it, that the star power is there. The production just hasn't been there to a certain degree. But look, no question about it, you're going to be facing an inferior offensive line to this Toppers defensive line. They might have some speed at certain positions, but there is no way, man for man, they outspeed Western Kentucky's defense. There's no way. So this is the game to flex the muscles. This is the game to play with a little bit of an edge and play with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder and really just pound somebody into the ground. If you can do it, you should do it, period. No love lost. The Toppers are struggling, and, we're not here to play nice and make friends. So if you can bully the other team, bully the hell out of them. That's the way I see it. Let's talk defense for these mocks, though. They do have some players on defense. Several guys came back from the year before. A couple of the top tacklers are back. The leading tackler is gone, I think, or it's either the second leading tackler returned or the leading tackler returned. But either way, they do have some playmakers on defense that return. We're going to feature 5 guys here. It starts with number 46 linebacker Ty Beck, the 6'2", 225-pound junior. Had 101 total tackles last year and 47 of those solo, and a nice secondary stat line to go with it. 3.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, a quarterback hurry, 2 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries. Nice all-around player for the Mocs. Somebody you'll definitely want to keep an eye on. Number 14 from a defensive back position, Jordan Jones, 5'10", 190-pound senior. Big drop-off in tackle production there, down from 101 from your leading returning tackler to just 46 for the second leading returning tackler, 35 of those solo. Jones picks up 1 interception, 12 passes defended on the season, and 1 fumble recovery. Here's a good one. This is one you might want to pay attention to. Number 90, defensive lineman Devontae Maxwell, 6'2", 295-pound junior. 46 total tackles, 27 of those solos. Get this, 7 sacks, 13 tackles for loss, and 3 quarterback hurries. Pretty good force there on the defensive line for the Mocs. And then rounding out 2 guys, number 1, defensive back Brandon Dowdle, the 5'10", 195-pound senior. 45 total tackles, 22 of those solo, 1.5 tackles for loss, 2 INTs, and 5 passes defended. And then finally, we'll feature a linebacker to close it out. Number 3, Rashawn Freeman, 5'11", 190-pound senior, 38 tackles, 25 solo, 2.5 tackles for loss, 1 interception, 4 passes defended, 1 fumble, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery. There are some guys there that have made plays in the past. I guess if I've got to put a spotlight around one, it's got to be the defensive lineman, Devontae Maxwell. I mean, Jiminy Christmas, 7 sacks and 13 tackles for loss from a defensive lineman position. It's pretty good. They must be fairly strong up the middle. I don't see any defensive ends here of any notability, so probably not much of a pass rush. Taking that into account, Steve, we just saw Tyler Witt make the PFF College National Offensive Line Team of the Week coming off of the effort against UAB. So a little bit of positivity there going in. What do you think about the Tops offense?
I mean, as long as UT Chattanooga and Black Bears, I'm not really that concerned. I think Western's offense, just kind of has to take that step. It's been very sloppy to this point. Even after the quarterback change, fumbles and interceptions have just been very, very prevalent. And it's just put ourselves in game positions where we're behind and having to drop back and throw more and abandoning the run game when we kind of saw it take a step forward against UAB. So I think this game, for sure, our O-line just needs to step up, create clean pockets for Kavaris, assuming he comes back out as a starter, and let him just sit back and make some plays, make some reads. Him and Josh Simon had a great connection the last game. And then let Jakari Moses and Gage Walker, just dice up their defense. So there's just no reason we shouldn't have a big game. There's no reason we shouldn't hit that 30-point mark for the first time in the season. I mean, it really should just be almost kind of that perfect game that we need to have some positivity, see some balls go in the hole, and just kind of start to get that mojo back and that swagger back that, we've obviously taken a pounding. In most every game we played, short of Liberty, you might say that we were almost, out talented, even though with all the talent we have up and down our roster that we'll talk about every single week, we played some pretty dang good teams. With Marshall being top 25 and UAB and Liberty both getting top 25 votes, being top 35 teams. So the schedule has been nothing short of gauntlet. Throw in the Middle Tennessee rivalry in there and a good Louisville team as well. This is going to be a needed, breather, if you can call it that. Just a game that we should cruise to, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. This is the one that has to happen, and it has to be very, very, very convincing. To me, Kavaris Thomas has to come out and continue to be the guy. I mean, if you're going to play the guy against UAB, then you got to give him an opportunity to have the game probably slow down a little bit against UTC and see what he can actually do against a much – I don't want to say a much – slower defense, but probably a few steps slower than what UAB was trotting out there. This is a perfect game really for mismatches to just come to the forefront, and Western Kentucky has several capable wide receivers to create those mismatches across the field, up and down and side to side. And this seems like the day that we'll see which running back should be the primary guy for the remainder of the season. This is the opportunity for somebody to separate themselves and have a big game. And if it doesn't happen, maybe it's the question we're going to ask ourselves for the remainder of the season. Who's going to be the guy? Where do we get 1,200 rushing yards from that Gage Walker gave us last year? Who's going to give that to us? Is this going to be a by committee thing and we're only going to get a fraction of that? I mean, these are questions we shouldn't be asking, but here we are. But let's talk about some points to victory, Steve. Who or what do you think has to happen? Give me those 4 points of what the Top's got to do to secure this win in BGKY.
The turnovers, one, has to be, the biggest point of emphasis, ball security, making sound decisions where we're throwing the ball, and just when you have the ball, wrap it up. I mean, there's got to be, all points of contact on that ball. They're going to be stripping for the ball, knowing that we've lost a lot of fumbles, so ball security and turnovers definitely has to be the number one focus. Two, I think the O-line play has to just assert itself as dominant. I mean, I think they're going to be the key to this victory, as they would be to most any victory, that, it kind of starts in the trenches. They need to open up the run game. They need to protect Morris in the passing game so he's not getting rushed and making bad decisions. Three, I think the defensive line has to create havoc. I mean, that's what they're known for. Juwan and D'Angelo and all those guys applying pressure just need to be in the backfield, just living there. We said that a lot last year. They lived in people's backfields, whereas we haven't said that very much this year. And then the running backs, I mean, they've got to be productive. I mean, we can't be a one-dimensional team, even without turnovers or without getting behind on the scoreboard. We've got to be able to use the run game to set up the passing game and then use the passing game to set up the run game. They have to be complementary. We're not heavily loaded one way or the other in general. So I'd like to see, kind of all facets of our offense get to clicking and just score a lot of points. I mean, obviously score more points than the other team, but there's no reason that we should have a shutout half or quarters where we don't score points this game. We need to put 30-plus easily. I wouldn't be mad if we put up 30-plus at halftime. But that's asking a lot from what we've seen so far. But we just need to score some points. Breathe some life back into the fan base. There's not a lot of negativity out there right now, but there certainly is some whispers of some negativity out there. And just a big, convincing, commanding win would hush that up for at least another week.
Couldn't agree more, really. this has got all the makings and feeling surrounding the game right now, at least from my perspective, that this can't just be a win. It's got to be a convincing, dominant win for some people to go, okay, let me take a breath for a second. Maybe it is not as bad as I thought, but look, to me, it's pretty simple. Some of my points to victory are attitude things. And number one is play with confidence. You have to understand from the outset that you're probably player for player basically better than everybody else that you're going to be lining up against. And your play should reflect that. You should know that the plays that you're about to run, you are at an advantageous edge. Number two, look, it's got to be a coming out party for the stars. The roster is full of some stars, and we haven't seen everybody string together a good game yet. This has got to be the game that puts D'Angelo Malone back on the radar of a bunch of those preseason pundits that were talking about him as one of the best rushers in the country. This has got to be the game where Joshua Simon has a big game to prove once again he's one of the better tight ends in the conference. This has got to be the game where Dev Key comes back to life and really just continues to show why he's one of the better defenders in the conference and in the G5. And then Kavaris Thomas really can prove that he is the guy for Western Kentucky moving forward. All of that kind of stuff needs to happen. We can't just have, the passing game look good and the running game not, or we can't have the defense get gashed in the run but play well against the pass. It's got to be a full team effort. And at number three for me, without even really needing to say this, it still has to be said, no more turnovers. They are absolute killers. And you pointed to that. It's just no secret. When this team turns the ball over, they almost have no shot because they're just not potent enough offensively to come from behind and get those quick strike touchdowns that they need. They need to be able to play from ahead for once and see how that goes. And the last thing for me is another attitude thing. And I alluded to it earlier when we were talking about the defense. I said they need to bully guys if they can. I said that you need to take some lunch money on Wednesday. That's what needs to happen. You need to put dudes on the ground and walk away from them. Don't help them up. This might not be the time for good sportsmanship. I'm not saying be a bad sport, but I'm just saying, leave your will or impose your will on those guys and let them know that they just got hit by a chrome dome. You know what I mean? This might not be the time to help the dude up after you just knocked him to the ground. Take their lunch money, leave them feeling deflated, and, bolster your own confidence a little bit moving forward, because I'm not trying to look ahead, but hey, BYU is on the schedule and on a Halloween game, and they're doing pretty well. So you better build some confidence while you can here. It could be a tough road to hoe a couple of weeks from now in Utah. Let's get to a 200 proof player. Who's your guy this week for the Toppers?
Man, I really had to kind of spin the wheel and figure out which way I wanted to go with this because, Kavaris and/or the offensive line is kind of an easy pick. I think both of those people, groups, whatever you want to call them, have to set the tone. Running backs, obviously, they need to be effective. But I want to go more specific. I think what we saw against UAB, the connection that Kavaris had with Josh Simon, I think that's kind of a safety net for a lot of new quarterbacks, and he's a big target over the middle, easy to see. I think Josh Simon is going to have a big game, and I expect him to just keep rolling. He's going to be Kavaris's one of his first reads, and I expect him to see a lot of balls coming his way. So I'm going to go with tight end Josh Simon. Give him a big handful of catches, maybe a couple of touchdowns in this game. I expect a big game from him.
Well, we see a lot of times when you're breaking in a new quarterback, that tight end really becomes a real weapon, and very apparent in the game against UAB that Joshua Simon became a primary target for Kavaris Thomas. Look, I'm taking the easy road this week because I just think it's that important. I'm picking KT because I think he's got to be the guy. He's got to go out there and play the type of game to prove that he is the right choice moving forward, and trying to get some more of this fan base on his side. If there are any folks left holding over of why did we make the change kind of thing right now, I think he just needs to kind of go out and solidify, like, look, the coach has made the right choice. I'm the guy. This is my team now, and it's going to be for the next several years. So no better opportunity than against a team playing in its potentially only game of the season to just go out and dominate. I mean, just do it, all right? I mean, Nike sells a lot of shoes and a lot of apparel for a reason. Just do it. Score prediction time, Steve. What do you got for the Tops against the Mocs this week?
Man, I need Western to put up a big score. So I'm going Western 38, the Mocs 14.
Okay. 38-14. I will tell you that is exactly the same score that my guest on the FAU preview show picked for Marshall and Florida Atlantic, and that's pretty wild. You and I almost had the exact same score too. I'm picking the Toppers 34-14, so we both like them to crack that 30-point plateau. I would not be mad if they get 34 before halftime, just like you. If you can hang 100, you need to hang 100, plain and simple. Time for being nice and being friendly is out the window. The time to dominate is right now. The fans need it. The players need it. The coaches need it. Everybody needs it. A lot of people are starting to get really, really down on Western Kentucky outside of Bowling Green. And they just need to prove that it's not as bad as some folks might think it is. Give me the Toppers 34-14 in a convincing win. Steve, final thoughts time. What do you got before we get out of here and look forward to the game in a couple of days?
Well, first, I'm looking forward to, this game kind of being exactly what they need as far as the quality of opponent and just kind of being able to reset their execution and just get some wins. Just play by play, drive by drive, one-on-one, just execution wins to where they start to get that swagger back. They see points getting up the scoreboard. Guys, a lot of guys getting in the end zone. Tops by 90. I think it's going to be the perfect game at the perfect time for Western, with the new quarterback. And just at 1-4, just kind of reeling. The season isn't a total loss right now. Obviously, some of the goals are probably not attainable at this point. But I'm not ready to say we're just looking for the future. I mean, if we can go down the stretch and play spoiler to somebody, that's always just as fun as winning a championship in some cases, spoil somebody else's season. But then also looking forward to just getting back on campus as usual, doing some tailgating, seeing some people, preliminary plans already to link up with some people, weather allowing. So just ready for a good game, a good atmosphere, and hopefully a tough win.
Well, I'm with you. Feel like this is the right game at the right time to help get some of that identity back, get some of that personality back that we were hoping we would be able to see in 2020 on the field. But just looking down the schedule after this game, of course, it is only 2 games remaining. If they're all played, will be at the Houch. So going on the road to Provo, then you go down to Boca, play FAU in a couple of weeks. Southern Miss comes to town. Florida International comes to town, and you close out the season at Charlotte. We all know the FAU's having trouble keeping games. You might as well say there's a decent likelihood that game gets played or doesn't get played. It's always seems to be a coin flip. Saw earlier that Coach Willie Taggart seems to believe that they'll have enough guys to come back this week and play the game against Marshall, but we'll see. So playing spoiler that, I don't know who's left on the schedule right now that you would play spoiler to other than potentially Florida Atlantic. Nobody else outside of BYU has a winning record. So, might be some coin flip games for the Toppers if they can get some of that swagger back. Even the away games, they could go down and steal some wins. So let's just get this one in the bag. Let's take care of business in convincing fashion, not eking one out. I mean, I know you're pulling for your dude, the Narv dog, to start kicking field goals left and right. And, this we ain't playing college fantasy though. If he gets 5 field goals, fine, but I want that to be the result of like 60 points on the board, not 15 points on the board. So, thanks. We'll wrap it up here in a couple of days after the game. last thing I want to talk about, should have done in the beginning, but I did not. Thank you to Monograms and Moonshine for continuing to sponsor the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Follow her on social media at Monograms in Shine. Custom apparel with a Southern twist. If you want some Western or Marshall inspired gears or want to get something custom, hit her in DMs, go to the Etsy store, communicate. She'll be glad to hook something up with you. Also, the exclusive seller of Moonshine Throwdown merchandise. And remember, every shirt sold that is inspired by Western Kentucky or Marshall or a Moonshine Throwdown shirt will get 100% of the profits donated to the Moonshine Throwdown scholarship campaigns. Whew, that's a mouthful. So anyway, Steve, you can take us out, and I'll close it down.
All right, Bud, go Tops by 90.
Tops by 90. Go Herds. It's the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Later.